And I'm very sorry, I have to give everybody the rest of the chance. So the floor is open now. Song.
Hello, hello. Hi. So thank you for some amazing presentations. Very interesting to hear what you're doing, and I couldn't agree more with what you just said. I'd like to congratulate the government on an amazing commitment on eliminating single-use plastic. Apart from creating a lot of political goodwill for the government, I think it will also be very good for the economy, the tourism economy. So I remember when your brother held that underwater cabinet meeting, and you had 60 million people just watched it on one TV program that was 60 Minutes, where Al Gore, the former Vice President of the US, referred to it on that program, which has 60 million people watching it. So it created a lot of goodwill, and I think this will create huge goodwill, and we'll start to see it in the tourism numbers. I just wanted to talk about plastic bottles. So there's clearly the ecological benefits, which are obvious, and I'm not going to dwell on that. But there are also health benefits. So plastic is considered a carcinogen. And what we've done at Soneva, so we banned branded water in our hotels back in 2008 in all our properties worldwide, where we had 6 senses as well. And we started to get premium prices for our water. So rather than what we normally get for the Evian, we actually started to get more because we introduced healing crystals. So our water menu moved from being, Vitel, Evian, Badois, whatever, to different healing crystals where we got a premium. So guests buy a jug with a crystal. So our revenues actually grew. So it was a growth of revenues because it was perceived as a healthier product by a guest. And we've actually experienced an 18% saving on our water revenues. So our cost of sales used to be 20%. It's now down to 2%. So there's a financial saving. So I think our experience of doing this now for about 11 years is that there are a lot of benefits for the guest, and you're also creating a nice tabletop presence. I do have a question on the coconut trees. I applaud you, and I agree with you that we can't abuse it, because if you abuse it, you then have naked islands, and trees they cool the environment. So living on Soneva Fushi and then going to some of our other resorts, I've noticed about 2 or 3 degree difference between thick vegetation and less. So it does create an uncomfortable environment for local islands when too many trees are taken away. But what we have noticed, and our experiences has been, for example, Mafaru, in our atoll, the Noon Atoll, which is next to Soneva, they're building a huge runway. So it's currently 2.2 kilometers, and I believe it's going up to about 3 kilometers. And we wanted to take those trees because Soneva doesn't have many coconut trees on it, and it's a lot of land. But by the time we got the EIA and everything, the developers of the airport just chopped the trees down. They disappeared. So that was a pity, because that was 25 years of growth that just disappeared. And perhaps another way that the government could look at it is to say, well, if you want to build an airport and remove the trees, or if you want to build a football pitch and you get approval for that, then you've got to find someone to buy your trees. So doing it the other way around. So rather than saying those resorts that want to buy the trees have to go and get the EIA, do it the other way around. Say, well, if you want to create an airport, or if you want to create a football pitch, you have to get approval to do that, and you'll only get approval if you've sold your trees. So perhaps put it the other way around, because the current system doesn't work, because trees just get chopped up, and which is not what one wants to achieve. So that's just a personal example. And I couldn't agree with you more about the importance of keeping the coral alive. As we know, Darwin's theory of subsidence, the reason the Maldives exists is there was, like the Earth's plate, there was a bump on the head. This bump on the head came up, and then as it started to subside, coral started to grow because of the temperature. So, the Maldives has been sinking for thousands of years, but the coral grows and fills it up. So when the coral dies, the Maldives will really sink. And that's why there are some low-lying islands which have gone underwater in other countries in the world, like Bangladesh and a few other places. They've lost land, whereas in the Maldives we haven't, because of the live coral. And actually, what we're doing in our resorts now is we've allocated 1% of revenues to coral growth. So my target with our team is that in 5 years' time, the coral cover will go from It's done around 40-ish% at the moment on our resorts, up to 70%. So that's our target, and it's an investment in the future. We just had our budget meeting yesterday, and we're saying, can we cut that? It's 1% of revenues. It's only for a couple of years, but it's our future, because in the future you might not have any revenues if you don't. So that's one that we're doing on a personal level. I couldn't agree more with the Minister on that particular point. Dr. Nasheed, thank you for a lot of interest, a very interesting presentation there. You're right, it's about a 2 or 3 year payback on solar. One of the things we've noticed is, so we introduced solar back in 2008 with 250 kilowatts. It was very expensive then. The prices dropped, so we then introduced another megawatt on Soneva Fushi about 3 years ago. The price dropped considerably. It was about $1,000 per megawatt from $4,000. So we went from $4,000 a megawatt down to, a kilowatt down to $1,000. We now want to add another 2.5 megawatts at Soneva Fushi and Soneva Jani, plus 4 megawatts of battery. Because you're right, diesel costs us 20 cents. If you get good financing, because the cost of your renewables is a function of the capital cost. So if you borrow at 5%, it literally costs you about 5 cents per kilowatt, vis-a-vis 20 cents. So it's a question of getting good debt financing. We spent, for this new installation, we spent about 11 months with the ADB, getting nowhere. And the frustrating thing with these government agencies like ADB, there's the Green Climate Fund, I understand that they have something like $100 billion a year to spend globally, and they need to spend money on countries like the Maldives, there's the IFC, etc., is that they normally will deal very quickly with the government, but when it's the private sector, it's a real nightmare. So it's a year of filling up filing cabinets, well obviously now they're hard drives full of data, and then they finally say no, or it doesn't happen. And I just wonder what the government can do there to get financing from these institutions and use the government as a conduit to get 4 or 5% financing for entrepreneurs like ourselves that would like to invest in it, but the debt cost is too high, and that would be great. So those are just a few points. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Just 2.5 minutes. No, it's cool. We enjoy your insights. Sada.
Yeah, I think this is a good forum to clarify this. I'm just looking at the Green Fund statistics which was published by the Ministry of Finance. Even August alone, we have received about 72 million for the fund. But the ongoing projects, so altogether from January this year, over 500 million we have received for the fund. But the outflows are only 190 million. That means we are not utilizing the fund to for the reasons which the fund is established. Then the other problem is the ongoing projects, for example, shows only about 27 million. So that means there's a lot of money which is either the government is not, maybe still in the planning stage for last 6 or months. But my question is now, for example, even ongoing projects, one of the most teething problems for the tourism industry currently for last 6 months has been Vandu. It has been closed for last more than 4 months, and the 3 atolls which are supposed to take garbage for that island has been forced to take it to Tilafuri. But, and we are incurring huge cost on that. But I don't see Vandu in the ongoing projects in the finance statistics. So I want to understand one reason is tourism, most of these green fund is coming from green tax. It's from the tourism ministry. So I want to ask tourism minister whether there is any representation of tourism ministry in the green fund management. Because I think there has to be. Because since this fund is used by, generated by the industry, there has to be some benefit directly to the industry also by the way the fund is allocated. It don't have to be utilized only to satisfy the government pledges of like building water and sewage in some islands. So That is my answer. Thank you.
I think the environment minister must answer first. We used to always argue in the cabinet in these kind of topics, so I'll give him the cue first. It's about the green fund from the tourism industry. I think in last December, when we had the guest house symposium, the participants were talking about this. If we are taking the funds as green tax, it has to be utilized as green activity. And in my opinion, President Ibrahim Saudi has delivered. He has changed the policy, and now the green tax for the funds that we receive are going straight to the green fund. And Honorable Mr. Dr. Hussain is in charge of it, so I think he should go with the answer.
Should I answer now?
Yes, yes, please.
Very happy to answer this question, Sri. Okay. We expect that this year we will receive around 900 million rupiah, close to 900 million rupiah as green tax. But you have seen the last statistics which is available, which is not 900 million yet. Before green tax, Maldives Green Fund was created, the government actually uses the finance as government revenue. And the government this year has allocated much of the funding for water and sewerage projects. And this was actually allocated much before the fund was created this year. So for this year, we cannot actually change that, because otherwise the government has to borrow money for the committed sewerage and water projects from elsewhere. So it was decided by the fund committee. For this year, we will not actually change that, what is being agreed by the government before. But from 2020, actually I'm happy to say that we have agreed to ceilings for different components like conservation, for waste management, for renewable energy, for water and sewerage. So there is ceiling set for each and every component. And there is, under the fund statement, there is kind of like 12 categories that we have to actually allocate funding. So we have agreed on that, and as much as 30% is still allocated for water and sewerage, because that is a major pledge of the government which we need to still finance. But there is a substantial amount set aside for waste management. And we believe that we can actually adequately address the waste management concerns used in these funds. You asked directly why Vandu is not operational. It's a long story actually. If Alibhai allows me, I would actually be very happy to discuss this, but it's a really long story. And I am not trying to blame the last government, but it is essentially due to the fact that there was no proper project for this Vandu, and different components of the Vandu was bought or financed through different elements, and there was no comprehensive, project that actually there was no financial solution for all the things. And one of the difficulty we have is there's no trained people now to run this. We not only have waste management incinerator, but we also have waste to energy plant, which actually needs trained steam boilers. Without that, if you run it, it may be actually a bomb, it may actually blast. So we are in the process of this. We have tried to recruit people locally, but we can't actually find anybody. And anybody who is coming from abroad, they don't stay with us. They go because it's an uninhabited island, and we have difficulties. But I've been promised that actually we will start working from middle of this month. And I'm hoping that WEMCO will be able to recruit a steam boiler. And as soon as that person is on the island, we will start operating it. And for your information, it is still, we have to comply with the World Bank strict standards, environmental standards. It doesn't allow us to bring in waste that we cannot put them on ground, bare ground. So we cannot bring in more than like 40 tons or specific amount of waste. Unless the plant is operational, we can't bring additional waste. So we are actually putting more ground and shaded areas so that we can actually store waste. We have a systematic problem, but we try to address it. And unless we address the Vandu problem, the promised funding for other projects will also not be available. So this is a key concern of the government, but we try to address it. We have difficulties. I admit that we have difficulties.
Thank you.
Just very shortly. I agree that this idea of ADB and IFC financing, the cost of financing is what breaks renewables at the moment. Yeah. An idea that could be is the government borrows. So we don't all go to IFC or ADB. The government borrows and lends on at a discounted rate or a cheaper rate. They have done that in Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka borrowed $50 million from ADB. They should, yeah. But Sri Lanka borrowed $50 million from ADB, and the idea was that they would lend on at cheaper interest rates to domestic clients, customers. So basically, the government took 50% of the interest component. In a similar way, the Green Fund, I think, what they should do is they should lend at a cheaper rate, at a lower interest rate, than the banks where this thing works. I mean, the electricity in the Maldives is very high. So it comes on. And the other, just to add to this one more question, yeah, we have a mindset in the Maldives that everything is energy is electricity. It doesn't have to be. Waste water is very possible. When you have heat, we have a lot of heat in this country. We are not using that. We generate heat, we're not using that. We don't have to go to electricity. We can go hot water to air conditioning, chilled water, that is very possible. We can go from hot water to desalinated water. We just need to burn it. We just need to collect the heat. We don't need to produce electricity. And with Vandu is also, again, we have it on an uninhabited island, and now the next stage is there is energy there, we can't use it. So the next thing is, the idea is trying to make Vandu as an industrial park. My thinking is, no, don't do that, lay a cable to the next island. Distribute that power. Bring the power from where the source is to where the demand is. Not create additional areas on these. Yeah.
So what we will do is we will send a long story about Vandu to Mati. I don't think, and I have one more question to Dr. Hussain, because from Santara, Rasfushi, from Kodipar, from Crossroads, and from every time when we travel from the seaplane, we see the Tilafushi burning and the waste. Every day, I think from Kurumba village also, still they have to take the waste and attend to this. So I think it's like in our face, we are having this Tilafushi, something that's killing off the beauty of our country, especially the mother city and the airport zone. So I would like our Honorable Minister to give us a clue, when can this change? I think he has answered very well to the question you threw. I think from next year, things are going to change with green tax, and I'm sure with the ideas and thoughts that you all are pushing, things will change. But I really want, on behalf of these resorts, because they ring my office every morning, and I think this is the right moment for our Honorable Minister to say something about it. Thank you.
Yes, very happy, Minister. Waste. I think I must say waste is something that we have inherited from previous administrations. A lot of waste. And right now, we are in the process of actually having a nationwide cleanup. We have asked to submit bids for contractors. So which will be due by 6th of October. And we're going to have a nationwide cleanup, and all these rubbish waste tips will be actually clear up. And that will not be a nuisance, it will not be a health hazard from then onwards. But Tidafushi is a very special case. Tidafushi fire has been there for more than 30 years, 25 years. It's an ongoing fire. I mean, it's an open fire. There is no equipment there to deal with it. Like, I mean, there's no incinerators there. There is a project, otherwise, Minister and colleagues and also resort owners. There is a project initiated by the government, which will actually deal with the Tidafushi waste issue once and for all. We're going to have an incinerator plus waste sorting and recycling centers in Tidafushi. But that project will be completed in another 4.5 years. But you'll be thinking the smoke will be there for that long. No. We try to actually get rid of the smoke from the island. As soon as we can get we can source some important equipments from abroad, like some heavy machinery. We need to actually shift the whole amount of waste. Even with heavy rain, actually it's good for the fire. More smoke is produced. So the only way we can actually get rid of the fire is putting like a feet of sand over the mound or actually shifting through it. So we are getting some important equipment from abroad, and we have difficulties to buy this equipment because the way we have the financial regulations, because we have to get quotations from number of people. We have a difficulty here. But we are in the process of getting these equipments. When we have these equipments, we will be able to shift through the offending waste mounds. And we're hoping that smoke from Tidafushi will be then stopped by, I would say, the first half of the next year. I think we'll be able to do that. I think that is the target that we have to work for. And also, we are building a proper quay wall and other facilities to receive waste from Tidafushi. When these facilities are established, before actually the incinerator is placed, I think waste from Tidafushi will not be floating out of the place and will not be affecting the nearby resorts. And it's a major concern that we have inherited. And for Tidafushi is really a good opportunity as well, because we receive nearly 500 tons of waste from Greater Maldives region, and we can produce as much as 8.5 megawatt of electricity from it. So when the bridge is connected, well, we're going to supply electricity to Mali as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Sada.
Thank you, Minister. I'd like to compliment Dr. Senashri for his thinking on biosecurity. I think importation of any live biological produce into this country, especially at a time when we are trying to improve our agriculture sector, can have quite long-term impact, as we have seen in the coconut plantations. Some projects quite far from the original source of importation can be severely affected. One of our agricultural projects in Mapai has been severely attacked by the little black beetle, and it is at huge cost to not only that island but to the surrounding islands. And we don't let any biomaterial come into the island, and in spite of that, this is transmitted by air. And I think the importation of coconut, or for that matter, most other things we need to really consider seriously if they are live and long-term vegetation for the country. On the coconut itself, I think this country has sufficient coconut resources to really look after our growing hospitality industry. One very good example was with regard to the airport, and I think the thinning of unnecessarily unproductive coconut plants can also become very productive in the resort environment. Main reason being they are overcrowded. They are really hugely dense on a big island like Mapai, and here I am sharing first-hand view. In spite of doing agriculture for 20 years, there are areas where we cannot control the wild growth of coconut. So there are aged trees around all over the country. I think the city councils are being, island councils are being empowered with various things. And I think if we all put our heads together, we can find a very useful win-win for both people who have the coconut resources and who need the coconut resources. So I'd like to compliment the Minister on his thinking, and I hope we can proceed on these grounds in the not too distant future. Thank you.
Thank you, Asad. Okay, Minister Hussain.
Yes, I think so that you're very right. Also, I think you will remember we used to have really good lemon lime trees also in the Maldives. But the 80s, I think we saw citrus kenka, spreading the whole of the Maldives. And all our, lime trees, lemon trees have been destroyed, And we got to be very careful when we are bringing, live material from abroad. I think I really want to ask the tourism industry, try not to bring, live trees from abroad, because we can actually have nurseries and grow our indigenous species, and that will help us to have, proper habitats and unique habitats that we can call, Maldives, really. So please stop asking for permits to bring, foreign trees to this country.
Asad.
Thank you, Minister. My question is more towards Nash. I think very interesting. We as investors need to change our mindset in the way we use energy, the way we produce energy, and heat and biogas and solar PV is the way to go. I think that you have to look at the barriers of why investors do not invest in this direction, connecting microgrids and buying electricity off the grid is a novel idea, and if the generation is all connected with the small land masses we have, it makes perfect sense. But from an investor's point of view, I think we lack the confidence, the security of what the future is going to be. Some guest house operators tell me that when they have their own generator in their small plot, they can save money instead of buying from the existing grid, which is providing for a number of guest houses and people. One way to go is through legislative bodies and assure that there is a cap on the charges and things. But then our legislative body, I don't know how much confidence we have. They change affiliation, and that confidence is not there. So for a multi-million-dollar investment to give up their lifeline, without electricity we cannot run a resort, or so I think the lack of confidence is the biggest issue, biggest barrier, not the lack of belief or knowledge, but the lack of confidence. And how do you assure that this confidence is given to the investors so that we can take steps towards this direction? Thank you.
Yeah, I think there are 2 points in this. Yeah, one is that the investors not investing. There is a tendency in the Maldives that the resort owner is not operating. Fuel costs are operating costs, so he doesn't see that cost. He's building a quick new resort with diesel sets and then selling off or doing that. So even at the design stage, energy conservation, energy management, energy saving is not in his thoughts. He sees only a powerhouse. The other question that you came about with these rates, my thinking is that Stelco or Fenaka, they are the utilities now. Yeah? Supplying a resort will not work the way they are doing now. They have to go to the resort. They cannot force the resort to buy because the resort already has. They have invested in this. They're not going to throw that away. So they have to come with incentives. First thing is, okay, my power is going to be 20-30% cheaper than yours. It's not going to be Stelco's the normal standard band rates. It would have to be power purchase agreements that are specifically negotiated between the resort and the utility. Like, for example, if you take a case like in Maldives, yeah? What's happening now is Stelco doesn't announce anything and power fails. Somebody who's put a fridge load of chicken, of frozen, it's gone. Yeah? Or even a worse case, they put an oven load, and 20 minutes into the baking, there's no power. So the whole thing is lost. Stelco is not responsible. They never take that responsibility. It should not be that way. It should be that the resort owner says, okay, I'm going to consume so much within a month. I'm going to consume this amount. Say in case your occupancy goes down and say, no, we can't consume, that safeguard you have to give to Stelco as well. There is a minimum amount that you should consume. There is a maximum amount that Stelco should, or the utility should supply. Yeah? And then all the things in between, the quality of power, nobody looks at the quality of power now. Voltage drop, frequency, nobody cares about it. But if you go into a power purchase agreement, you can specify these. I want 50 hertz, 400 volts, every time, all the time. I can have voltage drops up to 2%, 3% within a time frame, within a certain area. This is doable. You have lawyers. I mean, one problem we have with the power purchase agreements is the lawyer takes 4 months. Yeah, I mean, it is doable. So you can get your safeguards. The utility has the advantage for the utility is, say like if you, Nazir is in front of me, so it's easier to take his examples, yeah? Tunikolu is about a megawatt. Tuladu is about 300, 500, 600 kilowatts. Night, Tuladu's peak at daytime is 600, and these peaks are very short time periods, like 2 hours, 3 hours max. But they have, with the diesel sets, they have 150% capacity. They're not using it. Anybody who is in economics or anything, you have to use your machines to earn anything. Why not load a battery set at night time, keep it there, you know, it may be diesel, but during peak time, you use the battery set. The other side is, Tunikolu doesn't want to run their loud generators, their smoke generating generators. If they can stop it, they will stop it. Tuladu has got excess capacity at night time. Why don't you keep that? I mean, even easier is Guradu Kanduma, Four Seasons and Hura. Very doable. Hura's power station has enough capacity to supply 4 seasons. You don't need 2 power stations there. There is a scale, there is an economies of scale that they can get.
If I may just add, my point was that there is no guarantee of stability of pricing. If we give up our own generation or part of the generation, how do we guarantee? Because you cannot control the pricing of Stelco or Fenaka, and you cannot control, or maybe the ownership of Stelco and Fenaka can change. So legislative control or rules or regulations, but still we don't have that confidence that every government is going to follow that.
No.
That's the issue.
Yeah, one thing, what's very basic. Yeah, we said at the beginning, I said you won't be buying power on Stelco's advertised rates. You buy power with Stelco, your resort and Stelco is signing a power purchase agreement for 25 years. If they violate that, then you go to court in the same way that they take your resort away.
I said, I think only one solution is there. I think you need to keep this government. He's right, but what he's saying that after 5 years the policies change. If the policies change, you won't feel safe. So I think there's only one option.
The idea is that you negotiate a private contract with Stelco or Fenaka. It's nothing else.
Okay, last question. That lady there. Yeah. Last question, comment, and then we will go to lunch.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, Dr. Hussain, for your comment about you can't love Maldives if you can't love the coral reefs. Speaking about impacts on the coral reefs, we are faced with true rising global temperatures and the impacts on coral reefs as well. Nothing much we can do about that, but there are things we can do to help sort of not let the coral reefs get worse during environmentally stressful periods. And the tourism industry, I believe, is one of the main contributors to, I'm sorry to say this, but with all the reclamation work that's going on, I think if we want to sustain our coral reefs, we should start thinking about sort of limiting these developments if we have to make this to periods of less stress to the coral reefs. That way we should be able to sort of help with the coral recovery and things a little bit. So as a Maldivian who also loves the coral reefs, I would like to request everybody to commit to sort of limit your developments, especially when it's got this reclamation work. It actually results in sedimentation and it kills the corals, and during times of high stress, it's very difficult for it to recover back to its original state.
Thank you. I think we have the Environment Ministry and the Fisheries Ministry. She's from the Fisheries Ministry, and we have the Tourism Ministry. I think we all are committed now. I'm going to wrap up this session. I think it has been a very interesting session. Number one, I think we have started the discussion about going away from single-use plastic, especially plastic bottles. So you're the one who has always been advising this, and I think this is a good start. I think we want everybody to back Dr. Hussain and President Salih's commitment to the fight against climate change, and especially single-use plastic. And I'm sure our industry will be with the practical changes that you're going to bring. And the second thing, we don't want to see waste being dumped into the sea. Very clear. The government's position is very clear. These pictures we see will damage us, will damage our marketing strategy, will damage human lives to survive in these islands. We don't want that. So we want to make this statement very clear. We have to find an alternative to that. And regarding the trees and the tree grab, if developments are coming up and if these agreements there, we have to develop this. And I think we can move the trees, but we have to move with the permits from EPA and the Environment Ministry. And I don't think there's any harm in doing so. And I think we have to come up with a better solution to have more trees in the country. And I think Dr. Hussain has said very clearly, don't ask for permits to bring coconut palms from other countries. It's good. So I'm sure that he's going to give enough permits for us to move and do the increasements. And in the way, before I wrap up, what a clear call, I'm think I'm going to plastic सरकार के सियासत राइस जम्मू अब्राहम मसौदे के तिमावशी के सस्टेनेबल टूरिज्म में राज्य बांग्लादेश सियासत का दिए और महंगे ऑनरेबल एनवायरनमेंट मिनिस्टर एक इनिशिएटिव तो टूरिज्म सिनात में बार दिनों और मैं देखा मैं जाऊँगा के बोलूँगा मिसनात के तिब्बे बेफुलों ना वो बड़ा वकी मिसनात के दो बिमार पे तिब्बे ने फल इनका वाक़ द कैर समाओं ने एज अ मिनिस्टर that now මේ රත්තම් හික්කා දී ෆෝනරෂ හික්කණේ වෙස් එමිය කමින්ද බේබි එකම දෙකකින් කොමෙන්ට් මේ ෆාර වෙරි රික්වෙස්ට් එවිම ඒ වර ගොඩ බයිෆාර ඒක අස්ලු පර්සෙප්ෂන් එක බදලක එහෙන් ඉච්චින් ඒවත් දැක්කේ තම් ෆෙනේ අලගොන් ගොස්සින් බයි හික්කා ෆත්තන් අද අම්කාස් අලගොන්ම සවකාර ආෆ ෆඩද නොකර the algon police and car da società meno con la candidati come spero di fare co e come hikka tantanuge ama merin biodiversity අපි හොරිහා කමක කියා අරුන් දෙකේ කොටක අලුගොන් ඔෆියෝ ගින්න මිනිස්ටර් ඔෆ් ෆොරස් බෝඩ hikka මියා කියලා කරන්නේ ඒන ඒ ප්‍රොඩක්ට් වික්කයි මෙතන ෆතර වෙරින් එන්න අවගා සවොන් දෙ මෙනුව යකින් කමකි අලුගොන් මෙන්ගේ 5th tourism master plan එකෝ මිසරුකා කුරියෝ මෙතාග ෆලත නිරමුක මතරත්ත නිරමුක අලුගොන් මිහාරස් නිරමුක අඩගෙසීවස් demme almeke fisheries ministry ge ama official level fa kore gota ti vidalwa kankama interest kuredigen alma mekan kora algon fa konda algon me adannere resource te nerukas furuto fa algon me environment assessment e bahadam socio economic assessment ha bahadam rais jumhuriya beno for no me emphasis assessment e hedum fa honiyam emphasis russian bs tourism ati kuri meta do kuraka odu tantaga kuri endam aswele meno kura endam tana dante bes kuri do ko dafte kuri ma dinima mo me kian jenema ti vidalwa comments te kan algon me address kotte dengo ma fa ko ta wara clearly කඩක් මොනේ අලා එළොම් උට්ටාද කියලා අලගොන් මේ මිහතන tourism ministry ගින ෆහර social media ගේ ජහදන ශකුවායි මොෂේ නාලා නේඩියස් අවුන proactive කො මිහතන මියා incidents ත බලමු මෙතනි අදි දෙෆරාතුගේ වා කඩොම ෆෝ අලංජේ ෆේවලත අවුන අලමුනේ බගෙන්ද එක වවුන් දෙකේ කොතක ෆේවල් එළොම් නෝ හල්ලකි තිමාමියම් අමිල්ලය මේ අලනි තිමාග අමිල්ල ගයක්කම් කොනි ඉගෙන් local tourism bisa mihar meraje going on and that resource that yes algon men me serious no kore ne nge orange toshivias kotalevias tibemon abinda namnes eka jeifam innani as dagga emema mi laggati nota atirimati hadivati nokoram vi kame ekajenno mi hama timaga aminda kayan hama aniya ko kya kame plastic kotale algon men kitano arugada ko hottas bodu gala baro kofia mewa enodeve මොරකේ වස්වණි හම එහෙම අලගොන් මේ හම එදෙන් වවමර ෆසාෆ් මෙදන්නවනි කඩක් කොනේ අලෑගෙන් අන්න ශකුවාතාව අර සීරියස් එක්ෂන් නගා ෆියෝල් අලාන so අලගොන් මේ එක කොරිය ක්‍රියේට් කරමු අදි දිවෙහිම් මෙදන්නවනි දිවෙස්ස කොනේ රිසෝට් මැනේජ්මන්ට් නෝන්නාන බේර GM හොන්ටස් විදාල දෙන්නවා එහෙ නාදව එහෙන් කොතේ මොහොතව රිසෝට් කොනේ මැනේජ් කරමු අංගත් එම්ම ෆෝකමක හම කස් මූව් කරමු අවුනා දිමාව හම kas move para me birugana fitte birugana kannu chinge to eho nagamba huddata nagawage angol gina kas indawage එක නගලක් කොරීම නගලුවානේ අවුන් දෙකේ ගොතුක මේ රාජ්‍යක මේ සාලි සංහාරවේ තාරියක tourism මිසාවන්නේ මේ සිනාතුක මිතිබි ෆන්ඩ් වෙරින් කොරේ මසක්කතෝ අලුගොන ෆොරිහම ඉතුපාර ඔබේ මියතු ඇසොයි සංකාරක උදේ නොත මිකම කම්බෝඩේ ෆෙහොන්න බේෆුලක වර වකි මේ සිනාතුක මියදාම මසයි කොරි මීහා mi farutaka mi ha hada gasta go do ba wal mate nuan algon enge itura holwada fiya muhamma mentul muka kan tibene mi saw session de mone wassalamu alaikum
Now we break for lunch. We will begin exactly on the dot at 2 o'clock. So please do make your way back to the conference hall around 1:50 so that we can start exactly on 2 p.m. on the dot. Thank you very much. The marquee tent which you visited to have breakfast as well. Please enjoy lunch. Hope you guys